What's up, Call of Duty fans? Welcome back. IHOLDSHIFT with the fresh fade coming in hot for you. Hope you guys are doing well. We've got you the day, Day 3 recap coming forward for you. And I do have betting lines for you guys, at least approximate betting lines for you guys at the end of the show for Bookie's Worst Nightmare. So we do have that coming back. I noticed that both Bet365 and Bovada still have not posted individual spreads. But if you are betting out there on other sites that might post that, I will be able to give you some insight on where to possibly go. Let's take a look back, though, on what was Wednesday, May 29th. A very interesting day of games as we had Elevate going up against the Nile, Heretics versus Enigma 6, eUnited going up against Splyce, and to round out the day, 100 Thieves versus Team Envy. On paper, all of these teams relatively close to one another in the standings, and to be candid, most of the matches were also very, very close. Let's go ahead and start things off with the Nile versus Elevate. Now, this is a big one, considering that both teams have been sitting near the bottom of Division B, and both teams have had very good starts to their week. Well, it would be a much better start here for Joe on Hacienda, as he would start off very hot with a 14-2 start. Alex, as well as Joe, would earn full streaks very, very early. A very good start. Nile would go up by 100+ points midway through the second rotation, and Elevate just could not come back past that. Nile starting off strong with a hard point, which, to be honest, like we mentioned before, has not been the strongest in the world. This was a squad that at London went 1-6 in the hard point, and so far this week they found themselves a little bit more success. Now that would give their second hard point win, one up against Envy and then the one here against Elevate. We'd go to the Gridlock Search and Destroy, and well, Skies is one of the highest KD holding players in the CWL in the Search and Destroy, and he would once again play clutch a number of different times, even though it was actually interesting the fact that Elevate was losing out on a lot of the first bloods. Skies was able to win back a number of multi-kills, giving him a total of 22-5 on the EKIA by the end of this. Brack did assist in helping bring this back a touch for Nile. We would go all the way to round 11, but Skies was just too strong with that EKIA. Like I mentioned, it would be a 6-5 on the search for Elevate, who is, interestingly enough, a team that was only 1-4 in Search and Destroy. So it's interesting. I was back at London. So interesting to kind of see how the dynamic has shifted a little bit for both of these teams. To the Control we would go. That would be played on Arsenal. Very back and forth, all defensive heavy. Nile had a 3-man advantage at one point in time to break their last push at B, but they could not quite convert, and that seemed to be the story for Nile throughout most of this back and forth Arsenal control, was that Nile was not able to fully ever break when they needed to, and it would go the way of Elevate by round 5. We'd send things to the final hardpoint, and like I mentioned in my predictions, Elevate is definitely the better hardpoint team. We would see exactly why here. A 250-154. Brezzy would be 37-19 in the frequency hardpoint, and Elevate was able to start out really hot behind that performance, and Elevate would take the set as we predicted, a 3-1. Nile, there are moments where they look good, but moments where they look bad. We'll talk more about them a little bit later. Heretics and Enigma 6 would come up next. Now, again, remember back to yesterday, on day 2, the first time we'd see Heretics, Sukri and Methods would switch roles. It would be Sukri running the SMG and Methods running the AR. That would be a swap back to what we knew before. Sukri immediately back to the ICR, Methods immediately back to Ruin and the SMG, and it was Hacienda hardpoint first. Talk about just gifting your opponents a W. Hacienda with the side of Heretics, you just don't want to meet them there. They're 9-1 in the hardpoint, mimicking some of the best individual map mode combination totals that we've seen. And well, it looked very, very good. You would have thought this might be a very easy 100-point club with the swap of roles plus the map, but it was actually Enigma 6 that came out hot with a 111-53 start after the first rotation, but Heretics would tie things up going to the fences by the second point. They started to get things going. They would be able to sneak away the hard point. Then we would go to the Search and Destroy, where we would go to Arsenal. And why would you go here if you're Enigma 6? They were 6-1 yesterday on this map, and they would be, again, manhandled here once again. A 6-2 for Heretics. It's not quite able to match up was the battle between Lucky and Frosty, the sniper battle. Lucky is one of the better ones in the CWL, sniper-wise. He would look very good here. But Enigma 6 would then get 3 gridlocks in a row. Not a map that you would like to see if you're Heretics. They're 2-6 on the hard point of it, 3-6 on the search. Fortunately for them, they were 4-3 on the control. So you were thinking, if you're a Heretics fan, you want to see this over in 3. That would not happen, as E6 just looked to be the better team in the control, finding a lot of good surrounds and late breaks, both defensively and offensively. Even with the controller issue that Heretics had going into round 3, it would technically be a 4-1 in total if you were to look at it that way from Enigma 6 perspective. And then from there, Enigma 6 did not let off the gas pedal. Able to go back to gridlock on hardpoint, like we mentioned, a lot of back and forth, but it was just simple fact that E6 had what they needed by the end of it, which came down to a tree hardpoint where the grab slam for Enigma 6 caught the outside portions of the entryway into the back showers, not quite able to allow all the kills that you wanted to see with it. And unfortunately for Heretics, they weren't able to take full advantage of it. Enigma 6 would frag out and win this one 250 to 235. And then the gridlock search and destroy. Enigma 6 just would not be stopped today. They did look good, did the Heretics, but not good enough. Enigma 6 with the reverse sweep and the 3-2 win. We called this one too, although I'll be honest with you, I posted on Twitter with Sukri and Method switching. I thought this was going to be a 3-1 for Heretics. Here's the biggest thing for Heretics. Do not lose faith in this setup because this is a better setup for you. It's just that, again, Enigma 6 is being slept on. They are a very good team with a lot of potential. Going forward, eUnited and Splyce would be our next game up. And after Splyce got reverse swept yesterday versus Elevate, we did not feel very good about this Splyce team coming in, although it would be a pretty solid set to start for Splyce on the first hard point. Splyce would stick around as eUnited was able to break away late for their first hard point win, and then past that, the search and destroy. eUnited had a little bit of a slow start in their first game versus Enigma 6, but would not have a slow start on the search here. A 6-2. Splyce would take the control in this one, but that's only a, I guess you would call a participation medal because eUnited absolutely handled them on the final hardpoint, a 3-1 for eUnited up against Splyce, and you have to wonder what exactly is this Splyce team going to need to do to become a major competitor. And we finished the day off with 100 Thieves and Envy, and this one would be over. It would be over in 3, but it would not be a quick 3-0. Team Envy would come out and look very strong versus 100 Thieves on the hardpoint, which, again, very back and forth affair. Came down to the last couple seconds, but it was on Arsenal again. You talk about good map mode combinations for certain teams. Arsenal is one of those for 100 Thieves. They are now 10-3 as they were able to sneak away a 250 to 243 win against Envy. We then go to the frequency search and destroy, which honestly is not the worst case scenario. We have not seen Envy on this map very much. This would only be the third time in their history. The last time we saw them play this map was way back in week number 4. We have not seen them since before Fort Worth on this map. It was one of their go-to bans, and well, they would perform very admirably. It would go all the way to round 11. But if you're familiar with Envy and Search and Destroys in round 11s, they typically lose these. They would lose it here as well. And then we finish things off on, again, another Arsenal pick, this time on the control, which, again, Arsenal and 100 Thieves, it's like Hacienda and Heretics, just do not play these guys there. A 3-1 win, but big kudos to Envy for hanging with 100 Thieves. Definitely brought some inspiration, I would say, to me when it came to them having that rough start versus the Nile. The 3-1 versus a obviously mismanaged Heretics team was good. And then being able to take 100 Thieves to essentially 2.5 close games, close maps rather, is very, very inspiring. Let's take a look at tomorrow, the final day of our first week back with Division B. Enigma 6 and Elevate. Splyce versus Denial. 100 Thieves taking on the Heretics, and eUnited and Team Envy. It'll be quite a day indeed. Let's try to break these down as fast as we can for you guys. Enigma 6 and Elevate. Now, this is a tough one to call. Enigma 6, they do not have the most sterling record ever in the world. Only a total of 8-16. They're 13-30 in hardpoint, but you can't let that stat fool you, as they've been looking a lot more solid against good teams lately in this department. Now, they had a couple of rough losses just post to Fort Worth in the Cross Division, and then at London, they played a lot of really solid teams in their pool and then had to meet up against Envy. But the thing about this squad is I think that they hold the edge in the respawn mode specifically. Maybe not in the hardpoint, which is very back and forth, and with Elevate having a better search and destroy, they might be a little back and forth there, but it comes down to me as far as what these teams have looked like in the control. And Enigma 6, even though they've only won 1 out of their 3 total control matches, the 2 previous to the day that they played were up against a good United team and a solid Splyce squad, which they were able to take to the distance. So this is going to be a very close match. You're definitely going to want to stick around for the end of the video when we go over predictions as far as how we rate this one, but this is going to be a very solid match. Do not miss this one starting at 3 o'clock. Moving on forward, Splyce will be taking on Denial for the second set of the game, and honestly, this should be another very good game coming forward to us. Splyce has had a handful of hiccups where they look like they're just a little bit outclassed by the upper teams, and Denial has shown that they can beat teams in the middle, if not upper in the Division B pack. So this is going to be an interesting one, I think, for a lot of reasons. Denial, who had a very bad hard point at London, looked very good versus Envy to start off their set, and then beyond that, they looked pretty solid against Elevate on the map of Hacienda. But besides that point, my biggest eye kind of turns to the scene of the Search and Destroy. Yes, they're only 2-2 so far in this current week 1 of Division B, are Denial, but their losses were a 4-6 and a 5-6 to 100 Thieves and Elevate, who looked better. So very big opportunities for me. This is going to come down to what will happen in the control and where will we go, as Denial's been a little bit more one-dimensional than Splyce has. Going into the back half of the day, 100 Thieves will be taking on Heretics. And yes, like I mentioned, Heretics looked much better when it came to using Sukri as the main AR player and then keeping methods on the SOG. But there are other issues when Journey and Lucky were not quite fragging out as much as you would like to see in the Maddox department, which is where a lot of this game is going to be decided. You like to see Slasher and Kenny, obviously, on the Maddoxes, and they're performing near the top of the pack of everybody in the CWL. But beyond that, when Priest is able to flop back and forth between a SOG and a Maddox, he's become extremely deadly. Enable's done relatively well to hold down the front line, and I think he's going to have some favorable matchups versus this Heretics team. So as far as upset potential, I would not get your hopes up too much if you're the Heretics, especially after, even though we saw Envy take them to a close 3-game set, I don't know if Heretics have the same kind of mettle to go up against this 100 Thieves squad. And then we'll finish off the day with eUnited and Envy, and I'm very excited for this one because Envy has been the bane of eUnited's existence. 0-3 is eUnited versus Team Envy in their history, with a total map count of 4-9. Most of those are pretty controlling wins in both the hardpoint and the Search and Destroy, favoring Team Envy, who just, again, went very close to the distance, as close as you can get, really, with the 100 Thieves in both of those departments. So very interested to see how that one goes. You're not going to want to miss how we break that one down. And speaking of, we will be doing a Bookie's Worst Nightmare. Again, if you're out there looking for betting odds and tips, this is the place to be for you. If you know people out there that also bet, make sure you reference this. And if you like what you see, make sure you upvote it a little bit too. It'd be good to see a little bit more love in the comments section as well. Let's go ahead and talk about these games. Elevate going up against Enigma 6. This one is going to be interesting, as Elevate is the underdog, only at plus 120. And then the plus 1.5 at minus 200. And if you take a look at that from Enigma 6 perspective, they are the favorite pretty considerably, minus 163. And for them to find a 3-1 or a 3-0, you add plus 140 to that. Personally, stay away from betting on this one. I personally will predict this one going a 3-2. Again, for me, it kind of comes down to the fact that I see a possible split in the hard point. This is going to come down to the control and the potential of who gets their Search and Destroy pick first. If Enigma 6 get it first, I think we'll see it go to Hacienda, and I don't see Elevate being able to perform on a map that they have relatively not done well on. We've only seen them play it once, and that was against Splyce. They lost 3-6 there. So if you're Elevate, you're hoping you ban that one away, but Enigma 6 has not really been characterized by one specific Search and Destroy map. I think that they're still going to be the stronger team here, and I give them a 3-1, if not a 3-2. Stay away from the parlay bet on this one. Stay away from the match winner, and stay away from the spread. This is going to be a tough one to predict. Like I said, this is going to be a very good set. To the second set, Splyce versus Denial. Not as big of lines as you'd think you'd see here, as Splyce are the favorites at minus 250. They're going for the minus 1.5 spread at minus 125, which is not at all favorable whatsoever, considering that they're not that heavy of a favorite. You thought that they might be a little bit bigger of a line there, but it's okay because you take a look at Denial. Plus 170 is the underdog, and only minus 114 at the moment to cover at least 2 maps. Personally, I think this game is going to be a lot closer than the names of the organizations might suggest. Splyce has been very hit or miss. They are 2-3 currently in the hardpoint, 2-2 in the Search. They are 2-1 in the control, and that's where I see this set mostly being decided, is in the control. Denial has not been great there. They do play Arsenal relatively well, but Splyce, I would imagine that is their go-to veto. They have not played Arsenal control since just after Fort Worth. They are 1-3 on the map mode combination in total which is not what you want to see whatsoever. So if you're looking at this from the perspective of Splyce, you're probably already just going to ban this map out, no problems. I do not see them playing here at all. This one I likely see going Splyce's favor because of that, just based on the control. I see this one going at 3-2 for Splyce. I would not bet this one in any instance unless you want to go for the spread bet. Personally, that's the only place you might want to bet it. I would hesitate though, because this one very well could be over in a 3-1 fashion. You might not get that cover, and it's only -114. So if you want to get good value out of that bet, you're going to have to bet on it hard. The other possibility is if you think Nile could potentially take this one from Splyce. I don't see it happening, but I do have it listed as a potential upset just in case, because this one very well could go 5, and who knows what Splyce you'll get in the back half of their sets. Heretics versus 100 Thieves in the second half of the day. Heretics the underdog at +210 to cover 2 maps, +125, which is not bad at all, but again, they're going up against a very strong 100 Thieves team, which looks very strong. -280 is the favorites, and -170 for them to cover the 3-1 or the 3-0. Personally, I've got this one going in 3-1 fashion. Not worth betting, I would say, the spread line of -170. You might want to add this into a parlay if you're feeling feisty, but personally, I would not add this win to anybody else, because tomorrow's going to be chaos and anything can happen. So be very careful about how you're betting, and I would not throw much money at this one whatsoever. I just think, honestly, 100 Thieves, too good in the respawn. Heretics, they might get lucky in the search or possibly the control, but I don't see this one going 5. So even the +125 for Heretics, I don't necessarily like. To finish off our day, we've got Envy versus eUnited, and I mentioned this when we were breaking down the matchup in specific. Envy is the kryptonite to eUnited. It's been like that since the beginning. Nothing has really shown us otherwise, and personally, I've got that going the same way here again. +125 as the underdogs is Envy, -180 for them to cover at least 2 maps, where it's -160 for eUnited with a +130 for them to go a 3-1 or a 3-0. Personally, I've got this one going a 3-1 for Envy, and that might seem strange, but I honestly feel like the hardpoint stats and the control stats will favor Envy, and it depends really on what search and destroy comes first. This will either be a 3-1 or a 3-2, I think. It just comes down to, will Envy clutch up and actually show up with the passion? The Aches and Clayster rivalry is going to be full force, so you have to feel like Patty P is going to come out playing strong and looking to gun. If Clayster keeps playing at the level he's played at, this very well could go the other way, but personally, I like the upset potential, and I will be betting on this one from Envy's point of view. And as we take a look at what I was able to do in the days previous, I did not get to show this one, but I ended up picking Enigma 6 versus Heretics, like you guys saw in my COD Gamepedia prediction. That one paid out. And I also put a 3-team parlay, in fact, for the teams of Elevate, eUnited, and 100 Thieves. That paid off as well. Sorry I couldn't give you guys the biggest of bet tips from yesterday, but going into tomorrow, all I have is the Envy upset. Personally, I just don't really feel super strongly about anything else. You might want to bet the spread in Nile, but personally, I would just stay away from that one. You never know what's going to happen with that Nile team, more importantly, that Splyce team. So I'll be going a little bit risky with the +125 on Envy. Best of luck. Let me know what you guys bet in the comments below and other things you might like to see out of this show. Personally, I've had a lot of fun making these, so hopefully you guys enjoy watching them. Until next time, though, hope you all keep pulling it down. Later, bye-bye.